This is the Backlot 605 podcast. And it is now time for another interview from the Backlot. Hello and welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelderman, and I am joined on a very special interview bonus episode with my Backlot 605 co-host, Mr. Brian Mensing. Brian, how are you?
It's going good. It's going good today.
It is going good. We are in, obviously, we're in Sioux Falls. The weather is feeling good this week, much better than it was the last couple weeks beforehand.
We're above 40.
We are above 40. What is going on with the world right now? That's all right. If we can keep it above 40, I'm all for that. But you know what, Brian? We're not going to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about the weather because that's not what we do. We're not a weather podcast. We are a movie podcast.
That's the other one, right?
That's the other one. The other one we need to launch at some point, the weather podcast. But we're a movie podcast. You know what? We're a South Dakota movie podcast. So why not talk about a South Dakota movie? That is why we are talking about Blackwood, which is an upcoming South Dakota shot-produced film. It is a horror western, and we are joined by the film's writer-director, Chris Canfield. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Good. And I see right behind you do have a little promotional material behind you.
Oh,
I just see that up.
You did see that, huh?
Yeah, that's awesome.
We got a couple unreleased ones right now that we've been kind of playing with, so that's funny.
Nice.
You can see that.
He's always got an eye for that kind of stuff.
I'm always looking in backgrounds because usually people have like movies or posters. I'm like, oh, what you got behind? I need that for my office or something like that. So.
Nice.
That's why I have a fake office like this.
That's not real?
No, I can't play the piano either.
No. Well, let's kind of just jump into this. Chris, this is, like you said before the show, this is your first podcast interview. This is also your first feature film with Blackwood, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Correct on both, yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy that you're able to join us on the show, and I'm very excited to talk about the film. And we'll jump into it right now. So, Blackwood, if you could give us like a synopsis for people who have not heard about this. I mean, we discovered this through. I mean, I love horror movies. I'm always keeping up with horror movies, so that's how I came across this. And I'm like, oh, South Dakota horror movie. Yes, I'm in. So, if you want to give people a quick synopsis about the film and what the film's all about.
Absolutely. So the quick and dirty is it's a story about a Sioux woman who evades a group of outlaws by escaping into an uncharted forest known as the Blackwood Forest. And once inside, the outlaws capture her, and they soon have to work together because they unknowingly awaken an ancient creature known as the Wendigo, which is kind of an older Algonquin native legend that I kind of took and kind of morphed into this world that was created.
And that's actually kind of the first thing I wanted to touch on because, I mean, the Wendigo has been used in many, many stories and folk tales and movies. I mean, the one that I think of is like it was in Pet Sematary is the creature that they mentioned in that as well. So what was it for you about hearing about the Wendigo, like history, the mythos of it, that you're like, yeah, I need to put that in a movie?
It was something that I could that I felt like I could do, and also when I was doing the research about it, you know, for people that know about the Wendigo, but you know, there's also there's the side of the Wendigo where it's like, you know, it's like a cannibal, or it's like you start eating people and then you start turning into this creature and then it starts becoming kind of the supernatural creature. So I found that story, and that was kind of your basic story with movies and your basic lore. But there was another one that I found that it spoke to me more. This one was a story about the devil tricking a warrior and turning him into a creature. So what it was I believe it was a medicine man within his tribe foresaw enemies coming onto his tribe and killing everybody. So he asked his strongest warrior, hey, can you help me, basically? The warrior knew he couldn't do it just in his physical form, so he sought out the devil. And the devil asked for his soul, and in exchange, he turned him into this creature, this monster, which is the Wendigo. So that's kind of where I had that. And then I took it a little further than that, and I took it where that within the lore that when the enemies stopped coming because the Wendigo / warrior killed everybody, basically, he tried to return to his family, but his family was so scared of him and frightened of him that they banished him. So the person that saved them is now, vanquished from his home. So I had that warrior travel back to where the devil was, which was in the Blackwood Forest, and try to search for the devil, but the devil had disappeared. So now he's cursed to be this monster forever, basically. So that's kind of the direction that I took. A little bit different than your typical Wendigo story, but I felt like it grounded grounded the Wendigo to make it more of a humanistic story.
So just out of curiosity, so with that, did you always intend, as you were trying to develop this and all that it was always going to be a period piece?
Yeah. So I grew up, I grew up as a ranch kid in Wyoming and stuff. So I kind of been around that realm. And when I first started writing this, I had it as a Western. When I was pitching it around, trying to sell it, people were trying to tell me to make it to a modern day piece. And I tried. I thought about it, and I was thinking on how it could work. But for some reason, like, I live in South Dakota, or I made it in South Dakota. I knew a lot of people in South Dakota. I was like, there's no reason this couldn't be a Western. And I feel like since I'm using like a Native American lore and legend, I feel like that the Western period timepiece helps sell the believability, even if it is, fantasy, but it helps sell it that it belongs in that world, if that makes sense. So. And so, yeah, being in a Western, I've had it since day one. I actually turned down one deal because they wanted me to make it a modern day piece, which was hard. Like, it was my first deal, and I'm like, I can't. For some reason, I can't. So I pushed really hard to make it a Western, and I'm very happy I did, because it works way better that way, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. And that's not a genre we see combined with horror all too often. Especially, Westerns is not a genre that's around very often anymore, period.
Mm-hmm.
But so with that, I understand why someone would pitch to you, like, put it in modern day. We need to have it updated. But
right.
I do like that you're sticking to your guns with it, because I think, like you said, especially with a South Dakota-based movie and what the story is really all about, the Western mythos and the Western template is perfect for that. Was that something that you found while shooting in South Dakota kind of lended itself to, like, that's a perfect place to shoot a Western, is in South Dakota?
Absolutely. I wanted to showcase South Dakota as much as I could, because I've lived there for quite a few years, and I just love the area. I love the scenery, from the west side of the state to the east side of the state where you guys are at. You have the rolling prairies, and then you have the Black Hills and everything in between. But it was fantastic. I actually wrote the main story, based on the locations that I either could find and have access to. So I had one, the first draft of the script I wrote just to get it out of my head. And then I went around and tried to look for the places that we could film, and then, talk to the owners or talk to the National Forest and stuff like that. So some of the story actually morphed into what I had access to, basically. And because of that, we got, there's a huge cave scene. We're in the Black Hills. We tried doing the Badlands. Last minute, that property got pulled out from underneath us, so we had to improvise, so unfortunately. So maybe next time. But we travel everywhere. We're outside of Edgemont, like I said, the Black Hills, and then outside kind of by just outside of New Underwood, I would say. So we kind of encompassed everything. And the landscape and the backdrop of South Dakota, it's its own character. And the Wendigo lives in the woods, and the Black Hills were just a perfect setting to put that. Not just because it's a horror setting, but it's just, there's something about the Black Woods that just, when I say Blackwoods, I keep saying Blackwoods, Black Hills. Sorry, there's something about the Black Hills that there's an energy there that it feels, it felt right being in there. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just in this past summer. I was out in the Black Hills, and we were driving through the hills out in an ATV, and I was like, man, this is scary. Like, imagine if I'm not on an ATV and I'm just walking around here. That's scary alone. And like,
do that at night,
especially at night. Yeah, and where you have a lot of scenes in this movie are set during night, and obviously the Black Hills is definitely a huge inspiration for this movie, I do assume, especially with the title being so Black Hills, Black wood, you know, being very, very close.
They are, but they honestly and funny enough, they have nothing to do with each other. I just happen to be, you know, living in the Black Hills and shot in the Black Hills, but it actually is kind of an homage to Algernon Blackwood, who wrote a short story of the Wendigo a while ago. And then if you see in a lot of horror movies, you know, there's like, you know, they have like Blackwood Asylum, Blackwood. There's always something going for Blackwood. So it's kind of an homage to that. And it's just funny that I happen to be filming in a place called the Black Hills.
Yeah. So you talk about, like, you know, the history of the Wendigo in horror. Like, what's your history with horror, though? Is that a genre that you've always gravitated towards? Is that something you grew up with that you really, really love and enjoy?
Absolutely. I'm a big John Carpenter fan. I've loved all of his stuff. And then with this one, I kind of did a lot of research on what horror movies I like, because I like all types of horror movies. I like, you know, the suspense ones, the campy ones, the bloody ones. And so I had to really break down on what really spoke to me and what I really, really liked. And from that, I was able to direct or to guide the overall tone and feeling of Blackwood. And I've done three short horror movie or short films now that were horror as well. So my love for horror has just kind of been there for a while. And it was kind of fun to mix the horror genre with the Western genre. It's not a common one. I mean, like the last big kind of one was Bone Tomahawk, but this is a little bit different than that. And it was a good test on how to have, you know, a certain group of people like Western lovers and stuff like that, and horror lovers kind of meet in the middle. And that was something that was great to kind of take on. Hopefully it works out, you know, when people watch it. But I think for my you know, past love for horror and, you know, watching as much as I can for horror movies and and just having fun and liking them and learning from them, I feel like we did a good job of creating that.
Could you see yourself going back to that same type of horror Western type of film again?
Absolutely. I feel like, especially if you use legends and lore, and there's just an endless amount of like themes and structures that you can use to kind of create that environment. And plus, you know, that time period, there were, you know, it's kind of ruleless, lawless, so you can play with your imagination a little bit more, I feel like. But I truly enjoyed it. It's, you know, it's a little difficult with a period piece, because with this project, you know, even though it's a horror and everything, I wanted to make sure that the period side was correct. So I ended up placing this movie around the mid to late 1870s, just because that was the saddles and the weapons that I could get for this project that were period correct. So I kind of set it around then. So another example of, you know, creating the story around what I could get access to. So,
right.
You know, I would love to go back and do another one, and, you know, it's fun for sure.
No, because I immediately, when Casey brought this to me here, it lent itself into a game that I actually play, that I in terms of the game, it's one of those video games that I wish they would actually make into a movie, because it is literally a horror Western game.
Which one?
Hunt Showdown.
Ooh, I don't know that one. Okay.
Which basically you're talking zombies and monsters, and, you know, incantation to banish monsters and stuff like that. And like, I look at this, I'm like, we need more of that, because I mean, I think Westerns, I think they lend themselves great to a horror genre, and we don't get to see as much of them as we probably should, because there is all of that lore from all different aspects of, you know, back then, and you know shamans and all of that. And it's like, I would love to be able to see more of that. So the fact that we even get one now, I think is great to see.
For sure. Yeah. And the thing about this one was I had to decide with myself you guys want to hear how I started the movie, like how I came up with the idea of Blackwood? To kind of tell you, like, all right. So I was, man, this has been almost 2.5 years ago when I first came up with it. So I work in the art department on different features and stuff like that. And after, you know, I went to school for writing and directing. So I was like, I just want to make my own movie, and I just want to make something that I can have fun with, and, you know, do it for cheap, because that's all I could do at that moment. And the first image I ever had was an outhouse in the middle of the woods. It's just a rustic old outhouse. There's claw marks all over it. The door is kind of busted open. And then you see like the one whole seat in the back there. And that was the image. And am I allowed to cuss on this show or no?
Absolutely.
So it was, so I originally called it Shit House. So because I just wanted, and then I was just like, okay, there's a monster that lives in the outhouse. Okay, there's a shit monster lives in the outhouse. Why is this outhouse out there? So that was the first image I had of Blackwood. So I started coming up with the idea for this movie titled Shit House just because I wanted to make something. Then I was like, well, am I going to be able to get money for this movie? Especially set in Black Hills, South Dakota, the people that I know that I need to talk to. I'm like, I don't know if they'll go for this. So I did a little bit more research, and I came up and I found the Wendigo, and I was able to, have that image, but it spawned off into something a little bit more grounded. These characters aren't just like your typical, in a good way, campy horror movie characters. They're all real. They all have their own struggle. I try to give every single one their own arc. Even the Wendigo itself. I didn't want to make him just a creepy monster in the woods, which is fun, but I wanted to give him a more humanistic style. And, he is struggling as well, especially since he was a human morphed into this creature. So that's kind of what I wanted to do with that. So, yeah.
I don't know. I still want to see Shit House now. I think that's something that should be
done.
Yeah.
That'll be the short film that's attached to it.
Exactly.
Imagine.
It's just cool, like how it morphed from something being like, a completely different type of movie that I wanted to do for fun into what it is now. And like, yeah, I would like to do Shit House as well, just to go completely balls crazy. But the way that Blackwood has turned out, I'm very, very happy the way it's turned out. So, and especially if the viewers, if you're not into that type of horror, you can at least ground yourself or attach yourself to these characters. I feel like, because they're real.
Yeah, I think if you were to make a movie called Shit House and have it be about a poop monster that lives in an outhouse, that's a very small demographic that I'm a part of that would be into that.
Exactly.
But you say that, and I immediately think of the monster from Dogma in old Western times.
Yeah. it'll be Shit House, Killer Sofa, Birdemic, Sharknado.
But like you said, this is more of an accessible way to jump into it, because you are, like you said, you're going to get horror genre fans, but you're also going to get Western fans and people who are into kind of the outdoors type of style of just movies that we have, out there right now. And I think, for me, like those all just combine perfectly together. And I like we said before, I'd love to see more of those combined. And I guess the next thing I kind of want to transition towards is, your cast for this movie, because there is a name that I do want to start with first, because, his last name is also the last name of a character he's playing. So I want to start with Bates Wilder, who has become like the go-to guy for South Dakota movies, which I love.
Right.
I think he's just incredible in everything he's in. And he's playing Dutch Wilder. Is this obviously, is this just named after Bates and you had him in mind while writing this movie?
Yep, exactly. So I've worked with have you guys seen Bates Wilder and his other stuff that he's done, like Tater Tot and Patton and stuff like that. So I actually worked on those movies. I've known Bates for quite a while now, and when I turned more to the away from Shit House into Blackwood kind of story, I wrote the character based off of Bates, because I know he's just so good. Like he's a very underrated performer, actor, and I feel like he brings such depth to characters, and I that's what I wanted. So when I wrote it, I had Dutch was the given name already, but I had Wilder in there because I'm like, you know what, I'm going to pitch this to Bates. I'm going to be like, hey, this character has your same last name. This is yours, right? and I did that because he's not a, I've known him, so we've talked about, likes and dislikes of movies. He's not a horror fan. He doesn't want to be in horror movies because he feels like a lot of them fall flat, because he's a very strong, he brings a lot to the characters he feels like horror movies don't bring. Not to dog on other horror movies, because I still love them. So it was kind of a pitch to him. So, and then once he actually said yes, which I was very happy, I just kept it. I just kept it Dutch Wilder. And I was like, because that's a badass, like, you know, outlaw group gang name,
Right.
Dutch Wilder gang. Like, I couldn't, no, I'm like, let's keep it.
That really does sound like something like when you're going through your research and whatnot, going, oh, there's a name from, you know, that time frame that would have easily just fit for what you're working for. So I mean, yeah, it works perfectly.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a lot of questions about that. Is it laziness? Maybe, but it was more just trying to get him to say yes, and then it just sounded cool.
Yeah,
it's not lazy if it works.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is a cool name to have. Wilder,
that is resourceful.
Yeah. Another thing, I mean, I do want to talk about is that you have, you know, a Native American woman is kind of the center of this movie. Again, I think that, along with the South Dakota history and also the horror genre, is another untapped potential, is combining, you know, Native American, you know, mythology and their beliefs with horror, because, I mean, we've touched on pretty much any other version of religion and horror going back to the beginning of the horror genre. I think that's just an untapped thing. Was that something you wanted to kind of just tap the surface with a little bit with this movie, and you know, having a Native American character at least be the star or the focal point in a way?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, since growing up around there, there's a lot of influence from the local community, Native American community, and stuff like that. And I've worked with a lot of them, and I just feel like there hasn't been enough content for them to be part of. And I'm not saying I'm coming in to, you know, give them that opportunity, but I wanted to make it feel like it belonged in that, you know, Native American lore. And plus I wanted to give them an opportunity to have a platform basically in this, so to speak. And when I was casting this movie, I was very adamant by having somebody that had, like, you know, a name that sounded like it was, you know, Native American. Like I put out a casting call for the main actress, and I didn't get very many back, but I got a lot of you know, a lot of them from the bigger cities that were ambiguous, like, but their names were like Meredith Hernandez or, you know, stuff like that. I wanted something that had authenticity to it. And because of that, I found Tanasia Slaughter, who plays the main lead in this, and she was fantastic. She went through so much in this movie, like off camera, like just what she went through was it was amazing. It was the strength that she had and continues to have, but it came through on camera, and I couldn't have been more happy with sticking to my guns and finding someone like her. And that was something that I'm glad that I did. And plus, now you have Bates Wilder, Tanasia Slaughter on the cover of the movie, which is pretty cool.
Again, great last names in this.
Yeah,
movie.
I know, right?
That's awesome. Yeah,
I'm not making this up, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said too when I first started casting everybody. Like, people are gonna be like, "This is all made up. What's even real?"
Right.
No, again, I think that is an awesome thing you guys are doing, and obviously, I mean, I think that's, again, a perfect casting. Is obviously you have a Native person playing, you know, a Native character, and again, if you're setting a movie during the Western time frame in South Dakota, Native American culture is going to be intertwined with it automatically.
Very prominent.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and I think you know, kind of going forward with this is like, you know, you said you shot this in South Dakota. Was that always something like right away, no matter what, if someone says, hey, maybe we'll shoot this maybe we can shoot this in California or somewhere else, you know, or was that always, no, I'm shooting this in South Dakota. This is where this movie needs to take place?
Well, that was, yes, it was. I always had that in my head. I was wanting to shoot in South Dakota. Kind of the driving it home to convince the people for me to shoot in South Dakota is because I had all the connections, like for the horses, the guns, the wardrobe was all in South Dakota. The locations that I based the script around was all in that area in South Dakota. So that was kind of my big push for it. I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to, because South Dakota doesn't have, like, you know, an amazing tax incentive for movies and everything like that. So I was a little concerned that I have to be pushed up to like Montana, which is beautiful and stuff like that. But it'll be like having to redo the whole process over, going out and location scouting and trying to find something that now matches the script that I just wrote based around the locations. So no, ever since I wrote it, I had South Dakota in mind, and I'm like, oh, I can shoot this here, or I know this beautiful vista that we can go shoot this part here. So South Dakota was in my head since day one.
Good. We need more of that.
Yeah, and that's the next question I was going to have for you is how do we get more of that? What's the next step for South Dakota to become a place where production companies and films are going to want to shoot here? I mean, just this year, Nomadland is being a huge presence in award season. A lot of buzz and talk about that movie, and I mean, a good portion of it is shot in South Dakota. So I think at least films like that are getting its name out here, and films like yours are also doing the same. So it's what's the next step for South Dakota to become the place that people are going to seek out to shoot their movie here?
I mean, they just have to have the infrastructure a little bit, and that kind of that comes with time, and it's got to. Unfortunately, people go where the money is, and South Dakota doesn't have the enticing ability for like large productions or more productions to come out here. Unfortunately, maybe sooner or later. I mean, there's been a handful of movies being shot out here and stuff like that, but I feel like for the most part, it's just going to be the consistency. People come out here, make a movie, it gets press, and they're like, oh, there's more to South Dakota than the Mount Rushmore. Maybe we should go here and check it out. Like, and they're everybody, and everybody that I know in South Dakota and work with South Dakota, everyone's super nice, super helpful. So I think it's just, if certain incentives get passed and, getting more awareness that you can film out here in South Dakota, and there's a great diversity of landscapes and people and stuff like that can be used. So, with Nomadland, I'm hoping that's another door opener for a bunch of things. But I'm hoping sooner or later we can start filming more projects there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something that's this state and its landscape and the people that live here, it's totally primed for. Like you said you shot out throughout the entire state. I mean, this entire state has so many different landscapes, even within 60 to 90 miles of each other. You're going to get
exactly
multitudes of different landscapes to be able to take part of.
You can have a movie like Tater Tot and Patton where it's all like cornfields and everything like that, but then you got the mountains and the forest and all that. You've got like the Badlands, so it would look like it's a barren wasteland and whatnot. Like there is so much potential here, and it is honestly too bad that we don't have that infrastructure that says, hey, you know what? We really do have a beautiful locale for you. Please come in.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I know it's been pushed to try to get it to be that way more, but hasn't gone through yet or hasn't passed enough yeses to have happen. So hopefully one day it'll happen. So
if people are in this state or in surrounding areas that maybe on the fence about South Dakota, what would you present to them now as shooting multiple short films and now a feature film there, where you're like, you guys should come here and shoot your movie? What would you say to them if they're kind of on the fence about it?
Well, one, to know that South Dakota is not North Dakota. When I tell people I'm from South Dakota, they ask me how cold it is in North Dakota. I'm like, I have no clue.
How far is that from Fargo?
Yeah, exactly. Or they start giving me an accent, like a North Dakotan accent. I'm like, I got nothing. I'm so sorry. I went off on that. What was the question?
What would you say to people that are kind of on the fence about shooting in like South Dakota? Obviously, don't tell them to shoot in North Dakota. We want them shooting in South Dakota. That's the place to be.
I mean, there's a lot more people up there to help out on your project than you probably think. South Dakota also has, like we said before, a diverse landscape of everything, every backdrop you kind of need for the exteriors and stuff. It's pretty much got everything you need. I know there's two different sides because you have the Black Hills side with Rapid City, and you got the Sioux Falls side, which is kind of the two big hubs. But if you're on the fence about it, just come visit. honestly, just come visit and look around, like take a typical, location tech scout, and I bet you'll find a lot of great stuff that you never realized was even around here. And and I bet you'll fall in love with it to the point where you're like, I want to shoot here, just based on the people and the environment. And yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that is great piece of advice for people to come. I mean, obviously, I think we have a great tourism department, so filmmakers should take part of that. Just come visit us in South Dakota. And I guess the next thing I have here is what's the next steps for Blackwood? Where's the film at? What can we expect going forward with the future of the film?
Yeah. So right now we are in our last parts of post-production. We are working on music, which is being composed by a gentleman named Lance Bendixson, who is very, very talented. He's been very helpful guiding me along the way, because I've never been down this road this far before. So he's been very great. And then our colorist is almost done with the first pass as well. So we are hoping that the movie itself will be fully done by I'll just give some legwork. I'll say by the end of March, it'll be fully done and ready to be viewed, which will be great, because this has been a 2.5-year journey so far from conception, writing, from shit house to what it is now. It's been kind of a journey. So I'm very excited to get it done and get it out there for people to see. And I feel like I said before, I feel like people hopefully will fall, if they don't like the horror part of it, they don't like the Western part of it, I'm hoping they can at least fall in love with the characters, any one of them, because every single one of them have their own, internal struggle and external struggle. But it'll be a journey. I wanted this to be kind of a roller coaster of fun and emotion, and I think that's what it's going to become.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have to think it's got to be a great feeling that you're like this close. You're nearing the finish line to it. That's got to be a great feeling to have.
that last quarter mile.
Yeah,
it is. It's just keep pushing. So, yeah. So that's kind of where we're at with it. Super stoked. I don't have a release date yet. We're real fingers crossed. We're really hoping that it's released later this year, 2021, and. Don't know where yet. Don't know where it's going to be shown yet, but we'll definitely keep everyone updated on where you can see it and how you can see it. So
awesome.
And if people do want to kind of stay updated with the film, where can they kind of check you guys out at?
So we do have a Facebook page. It's called The Blackwood. We also have a website called theblackwoodmovie.com. There is an Instagram and stuff like that. We've been periodically posting up there. We've been giving some updates about where we are in the project, as well as some fun behind the scenes kind of stuff that we did. We're kind of stretching that out until we actually get like a full on release date, and we're going to start really pushing it out. There is a teaser trailer as well on the Facebook page and on the website, so check that out. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's where you can check us out.
Awesome.
I actually have a real quick question here.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of and everything like that, are you looking at doing anything festival circuit wise before like a full on release, or are you just going straight for like a full release?
It's kind of depends on the deal that we got. I was, pre-COVID, I was hoping to not have to do the festival circuit, just because I know that takes like another like couple years to go. So we were kind of pushing to get distribution immediately. As of right now, with kind of our people that we've been talking to, it's been going back and forth on doing some different festivals and with the distribution. So in the end, we'll probably do a couple bigger festivals to try to get it out there at least, and hopefully get a distribution deal as well. So
yeah, that the question I usually kind of wrap things up with is, we always like to pitch a double feature with the movie we're talking about. And so I will wait for that, because I do want to talk to you again when the movie does come out, and we can kind of maybe get that question out there when everybody's had a chance to see it. But I'm going to change up the question a little bit.
Okay.
If you're given a theater all to yourself, you and your friends, what's the double feature you are going to be showing to people? No pressure.
Well, if we're just if we're doing like a Grand Gounod kind of hot and cold shower, so to speak, where it's kind of fun, just off the top of my head, I would say Dead Alive, and then Blackwood, just to be, so it's just something completely fun, mindless, where you're just like, what the hell? Then Blackwood comes and you're like, oh, this is different. This is deep. So
Nice.
I don't know. That maybe I'll change my mind probably as soon as we get done here. It's like, dang, I should have said that one instead.
No, that's an incredible double feature to have back to back. That's awesome. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So I guess we'll kind of wrap this thing up again. If you guys want to check out the film, go check them out on Facebook and on their website as well. And on our side, we'll keep everybody updated, when we hear more things come out about this movie. And Chris, we just got to thank you so much for taking time to join us and talk about the movie. I mean, that's one thing we love doing on this, is talking to people, especially South Dakota filmmakers, and, talking about, how South Dakota is a small hub for making movies, and a great place. Like, you said, Tater Tot and Patton was our first interview was with Andrew for that movie.
Oh, really?
So that's we're kind of coming full circle now here over 2 years later. So that's awesome. And
we just can't get enough of Bates.
Bates. That's we have to eventually get Bates on the show.
Get enough of Bates and Tater Tot with the full Bates.
We got all of Bates in that movie.
Don't worry, you don't get the full Bates in this one. You get like some leg.
Oh, well, that's awesome. We can't wait for the movie. Again, we'll keep everybody updated. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys. I appreciate this. I really do.